Hey, what's up, everyone? It's your host, Sylvie from the Secrets from the Saddle, All Things Cycling podcast. And, geez, can you imagine? January is almost over and February is here. I have this sinking feeling that this year is absolutely going to fly by based on what's gone on already. Do you feel the same or what? So, this is pretty exciting leading into February, which is going to lead into our big celebration for our 200th episode, which is going to be on March 11th. I'm so excited. I cannot believe it. But here's the thing. We have decided, or I have decided to, there's no we here actually, I have decided to giveaways every week. So we're going to be giving away a prize to a lucky listener on Friday. And what I've done is I've actually partnered with some of my guests that have been on the podcast who have either physical products or sell other wholesale products on their store. And we've collaborated and we're going to be doing a little exchange just to get more of you guys actually looking at them and just giving out some really cool cycling gear. So I hope you're super excited about that because I am. So here's the thing. This is how you can win. First, you need to stop and go to Apple Podcast and write a review. So that's number one. Number two, while you're there, leave a 5-star rating and then follow the podcast on social media, on Instagram. But here's the thing. When you go to write your review, please put down your Instagram handle, because I did challenges before where I was giving away prizes for reviews and some people put these names down that I could never find them anywhere. So if you want to be found for a giveaway, then please make sure you write your Instagram handle as part of your review. Thank you. So then I can find you. Now, that being said, I have 2 grand prizes that are going to happen on the 20th episode day. Now, the first one is going to be given out to one of the winners of our weekly draws. The next one, I'm going to go into everybody who's put in their reviews, and I want to thank you in advance, and I'm going to pull a winner from there. And so that's how it's going to work. So make sure you follow the podcast because I'm going to be talking about this a lot, and that's where I'm going to put all the posting for the winners. Next, remember, a review and rating. You have to have all 3 of those things done to be recognized for the draw. So with that, I hope you have an amazing day, and I just want to give you a little heads up. If you went in and got some of my free downloads before, I put a new cycling snacks PDF in there to try for some different things for your training and your riding. So with that, have an amazing day. You be amazing, and I'll see you in the podcast. Enjoy the next episode. Welcome to Secrets from the Saddle podcast. I'm Sylvie, your host, fellow cyclist, bike club founder, cycling coach, bike race junkie, just truly super passionate about cycling. My journey with cycling started 20 years ago when I opened a spin studio, started a women's race team, and founded a women's only cycling club called Cycle Fit Chicks. I'm super thrilled to reveal all aspects that make the world of cycling operate. I'm so excited to be able to bring you interesting people from around the world, pro cyclists, recreational cyclists, coaches, event organizers, bike shop owners, everything and everyone you need to know or ever wondered about when it comes to cycling. I know you'll enjoy this episode. Welcome back to another episode of Secrets from the Saddle, All Things Cycling podcast with your host, Sylvie Dow. And we have this amazing woman, Lea Smith, who's coming to us from Vancouver, BC. Now, Lea, I've met like a lot of some of my other interview guests from a mastermind group that we joined last year. It's funny to say last year, then when it's like been a year. Oh my gosh. And I've had the pleasure of meeting some really amazing people and bringing some really amazing people who have a cycling background, if not a cycling background, but something relating to fitness onto the podcast. So with regards to Lea, she has a company called Beyond Measure Nutrition, and she's going to be talking about nutrition. So, hey, it's kind of the beginning of the year, and we should never just wait to the beginning of the year to get started with our nutrition, but it's always good to revisit. So Lea is the founder of Beyond Measure Nutrition and a registered operating room nurse living in Vancouver, BC. Throughout her early childhood, teens, and 20s, she flipped back and forth between being overweight and obese. Now, from the age of 8, she tried many diets and was at war with her body. So, maybe a lot of us can relate with that. In 2019, she set out to further explore hormone balance. And now this is a lot of things of what we're going to be talking about by focusing on what she believes as a absolute fundamentals, yet rarely practiced routines. And I can attest to that. She has been able to significantly up her food and carbohydrate intake, put on muscle, boost her metabolism, and lose an additional 25 pounds of body fat. And she's also a mountain biker, and she just told me she's doing this epic trip this summer in BC, which we'll touch on later. Welcome, Lea, to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
All right, so now we know you're a mountain biker. Hey, how about a little story on how you got into mountain biking before we get into all the nutrition stuff?
Yeah, so I love being outdoors. I'm always up for an adventure. And we had a friend that was staying for us, and he is a competitive mountain biker. My husband ended up getting on his bike and then came home one day and said, let's go buy mountain bikes. And it's like outdoors activity, time with you. Absolutely. I am all in. So that's how it started.
So have you been in BC your whole life?
Yeah, born and raised.
Okay. So you're used to the mountains, the hiking, the camping, I'm assuming some paddling, all of the above.
All of the above. Yeah.
Just missing the mountain biking.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. So let's just dive into your business and telling us more about what you're doing with clients and how you're helping them. And also, like everybody, we're all athletes or active individuals. I always say anybody's an athlete who's not sitting on the couch, and this can benefit everyone.
Yeah, I love that. It is true, right? We should all move our bodies out of love and respect. And that is definitely not always the perspective that I had. But when that shifted for me, and when I realized how treating my body with love and respect, with great nutrition, great movement, all of that sort of stuff, I recognized that it changed all areas of my life. It changed relationship, it changed career goals, and I have always really enjoyed empowering women. So before nursing, I was a makeup artist, and so what I loved about makeup artistry was not necessarily the beauty industry, but it was when I got to connect with women that normally I probably wouldn't come across, and they spent an hour in my chair and then got to feel amazing. And I thought, I want to help women feel this way for longer than a moment when they're looking in the mirror. And when I started to feel really great in my own skin, then I recognized that that is what I wanted to do. That is how I wanted to help women. So that's when I started Beyond Measure.
So so how did you go from a makeup artist to a nurse? Or did you just realize that maybe there's a better calling for you and helping? Is that how you kind of?
No, not at all. They're not, they are connected, but so back in my father's first motorcycle accident when I was, I think, around 6, I used to run around with a stethoscope and a little like nurse
Oh,
kind of kit. And,
yeah, yeah.
I am a caring person. I love people and always was interested in the science of things as well. So I think nursing itself and helping people was my calling. But
Mhm,
throughout high school, throughout that war with my body that you mentioned, low
mhm,
self-esteem, I absolutely did not think that I could do it academically.
oh,
So I chose makeup artistry because it was a way to express myself and a way to, again, help women feel great. And
mhm.
I loved it and it served its purpose. It was in my life for 15 years. And it
Oh
wasn't
my God, wow.
until I started Beyond Measure that I actually closed my makeup business. So I did them side by side, nursing and makeup artistry, for quite a while. It helped
Okay.
put me through nursing school and
Well, see,
yeah,
there you go. The job
yeah,
aspect. Mhm.
yeah. And then, so when I changed my health and was kind of really growing confidence wise, that also coinciding, I think, with the recession and wanting like a good, stable job, that sort of thing. That was when I recognized I wanted more. I wanted to break down those barriers and those
Mm.
self-limiting beliefs and decided to go back to school.
That's great. So that led you into starting your own business. And how long ago was that? That was not 2019, so that's fairly recent.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'd done nursing for a while. And then I really wanted to level up my health. And
Mm,
I had been kind of a part of like fitness, healthy lifestyle, that sort of thing since about 2012, 2011, 2012. And then when I really leveled that up and again started to break down some more, beliefs, all of that sort of stuff, right? That new level, new devil type of thing. Then
uh,
that is when I opened up my own business. And so I still practice as an operating room nurse. And then I started Beyond Measure in 2019.
so is this all virtual or do you do more, do you have like a location or is it more
It's all
one-on-ones?
virtual. So I've clients from all over, which is really interesting. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I love being able to, and like I love working with women as well.
Mhm.
I don't go so much into the nutrition unless they really ask it, but I'm more on the cycling side. And they all do kind of, start meshing together because if you want to, have more energy, you know, be able to ride, the nutrition part comes in hand. And I do absolutely love helping women excel on their bikes because just like a lot of them are always following very strong partners
Yes.
and
Yeah.
like they just want to be able to um ride on their own and ride confidently.
Yeah.
And so tell us more about your business.
Yeah. So, as I mentioned, I started it in 2019, and it really was out of what I saw as need and and then creating impact. So with
Mhm.
nursing, I love that I can, see and touch my patients. Of course, I work in the operating room, so there is like a very defined beginning, middle, and end. Um, but also, I'm very limited in the amount of impact that I can have. It is
Mm,
those people that I can see and touch. So I knew that I wanted something virtual. I knew that I wanted it to be based around science. I knew that I wanted to help repair people's relationship with food and with their bodies, but in a way that was really about creating sustainable habits, right?
mm,
As you mentioned before, I had that, I started dieting from the age of 8. And when I went to level up my health, a lot of what I had to do was unlearn, things
ah,
from before, right? Looking at food as good and bad versus,
mm,
nutrient dense or simply less nutrient dense.
mm,
Recognizing things like moderation, focusing on how I wanted to feel. And I knew that that mindset was going to make a huge difference for my clients as well, being able to have balance coming from a place of love and respect. So I work with clients one-on-one, and we cover things like sleep and stress management and the importance of moving your body often and intensely, and yet also resting and recovering. And then we talk about, nutrition and everything from, portions, and not only what you eat, but how you eat as well, right? Is it mindfully? Are you sitting down? Or are you grabbing things on the go?
Are you sitting down?
Yes.
Stand and eat a lot.
Yeah. Are you plating your food? All of these things actually have a difference, not only in things like blood sugar, but how your brain recognizes, when you're eating and if you're actually feeling satisfied or if you're hungry, right? So.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Let's dive into that stuff, like into a couple, so when you get a client, what is one of the first things that you do with them? Do you put them through a questionnaire to get kind of a background?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
what kind of questions do you, is it extensive or is it kind of basic?
I would say it is. I always tell people the more that I know, the more I can help.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it talks about, dieting history and asking questions about, views on food. And many people have tried many different things before, whether it be a certain type of diet or, again, trying to remove whole food groups or things like that. So when I know all of that, then we can, I can not only provide some science and some information, some gentle or some bossy encouragement as to how these things are important, but just, again, then trying to break it down and meet them where they're at, right? I always say that our goals should be a little uncomfortable. They should stretch us, but they should also feel attainable and sustainable. So it's finding that balance and then working with them where they're at, right? And that's where everybody is different, and why I love one-on-one coaching.
So do you find that there's a trend so you predominantly work with women, I'm assuming?
I work specifically with women, yes.
Yeah. So do you find that there's a trend with a lot of women when they come to you?
There's a lot of trends, yes. Yeah.
So talk about some of those, because I work with women as well with a nutritional system. I give them options, but I'd love to hear, where you find that most of the women nowadays are coming from.
So my clients, I would say, kind of average in like mid 30s to mid 50s. And with that, there are a lot of different trends that I notice. A lot of active women are still under eating protein when they think that they are eating enough, which, to me, I recognize it's rare. I am that person that has to watch that I don't over consume protein, because I've focused on, that being a priority for so long.
Yeah.
That is one of the most common things, is getting enough protein in.
Yeah.
And then aside from that, it's just eating enough in general. People tend to go from these wild swings of over consuming less nutrient dense foods, the quote unquote wrong foods for what their goals are, which often include things like changing body composition, which include things like recovering from workouts, which include things like better energy, better sex drive, better hormonal balance, all of these things. And yet they're not giving their body the nutrients that it needs. And then wondering why maybe they're having episodes of binging or craving, sugars and salts and all of these things. So when we focus on what you can add versus what you feel you need to take away. So adding
Mhm.
things like fiber, vegetables, protein, you know, those things. It
Yeah.
it is not only amazing for mindset, thinking abundantly versus restricting, but
Mhm.
it is amazing what happens to your relationship with food as well.
Yeah, you know what? I just had a conversation with a friend yesterday, and she was saying, and it was just a conversation. So she wasn't asking me advice or anything. So I was kind of like treading a little lightly, but I'm like, hmm. And she was under the assumption that she was a serious addict to chocolate. And I can get it. Like, but I also asked her if she thought that it was because her body wasn't getting the nutrients that it needed, that it
Mhm.
was always constantly craving. And she's like, no, no, no. I'm like, and she continued to say that she was going to try this new, low carb, high fat diet. I'm like, oh my God. Okay. I think I
Mhm.
should just stop here now before I get too deep into this conversation. So I was just like, I'm like, well, if you ever need any just or some suggestions later on, let me know and I would love to help you. But
Yes.
so I was like, oh my God, no.
Yeah,
Um,
cravings. I mean, we need to pay attention to those, right? So when
mhm.
I hear chocolate, and my clients and friends know I love chocolate. I love
Gosh,
it.
who doesn't? Like, seriously.
Yeah. But do you like chocolate or are you craving sugar? Right. So
Mhm.
if you're like, I eat 80 to 90% organic dark chocolate, I'm like, awesome. That's great. The best time for that is between 1 and 3 p.m. when serotonin levels naturally dip. And that is going to help boost those and also give you some great magnesium. That's awesome. Have it then.
Did you hear
But
that, everybody? Between
yeah,
1 and 3 in the afternoon.
yes,
Chocolate time.
have
Okay.
your chocolate.
I'm gonna
But if you're wanting like milk chocolate or like a
yeah,
chocolate bar, that is not craving chocolate. That is craving sugar,
yeah,
right? So
yeah.
if you're craving truly chocolate, awesome, have that. And also you might need to be supplementing with magnesium, right? So again, paying attention to these things is important. And
Mhm.
taking away that like good or bad, when I tell my clients like absolutely, yeah, have chocolate and have it at this point in your day, it's so freeing for them.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. And I'm like, I hate telling people to I hate saying that you have to be restrictive of anything.
Mhm.
But what I started doing with some of them is just a couple of days of tracking their own food. I
Mhm.
said, you love your own food, but let's just learn about that food you're eating. And then
Absolutely.
maybe you might make some changes. You know what I mean? Because tracking doesn't lie. People have this, I always find this assumption, like, oh yeah, I'm really healthy and I'm super healthy. And I'm like, I can't even progress, say that I'm super healthy 100% of the time, and I'm like, how healthy do you think you are?
Mhm.
And let's find out by tracking, because tracking will never lie. And then it also tells a lot of things otherwise, are you eating protein, sugar, like what's your sugar, your fiber, everything else, carbs.
Absolutely. So I
Yeah.
actually have all of my clients track in some capacity, whether
Right.
that be using, an app like say MyFitnessPal, whether
Hmm.
that be food journaling, like
Yeah.
actually physically writing that down. And that is because, as you say, we are not great judges of,
Hmm.
we can often think, oh yeah, no, I'm doing well, or I'm eating enough.
Yeah.
But then what happens, especially with women, is they think that they are doing everything right. And then they're feeling frustrated and not trusting their body when it's
Hmm.
not making changes. So when you have that evidence, like you said,
Yeah.
it's a
Let's
lie,
look at the evidence.
And it might be, oh, you know what, you've actually really been under consuming food.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore your body is super stressed. And then you talk about, cycling on top of that. Well, then it's like your cortisol levels might be through the roof because you're not recovering because you're doing this high intense exercise so often.
Mm-hmm.
And you're essentially malnourishing your body, right?
Yeah.
So, or it might be like, oh, I didn't recognize that the healthy foods that I was eating were maybe really calorically dense ones. And my goal is
Oh,
to lose body fat as well. Right.
right.
So that's like
That
simply,
might be
it's
my
a,
problem. Yeah.
yeah, right. So things like that chocolate, right? We want to pay attention to the amount. Things like healthy fat sources, so imperative for
Mm-hmm.
hormonal health. Your flax, your hemp hearts, things like avocado and avocado oils, things like olive oil. You absolutely want those nuts and seeds. You want those in your days, but you want to be really mindful of the amount, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was so it's the new year, getting into the new training regime, right? Christmas and so for me, I always thought like I think that like I feel like I undereat. And
Mm.
I've been meaning to you know, take 5 days and really track
Mhm.
what exactly I'm eating. And am I getting enough like in, those 5 meals? I'm pretty good about mentally calculating my proteins, because if I feel that I'm low, then I will have like a protein shake at night
Mhm.
before bed. Or greens. I do have greens that I can eat because the winter it's harder
Mhm.
to have more leafy fibrous stuff. So yeah, that was my concern for me. And I don't feel ill like in energy. Like I always feel like I have good energy, but I'm like, I think I'm like disservicing my body a little bit,
Mhm.
because the more I train, the more my metabolism kicks in
Mhm.
and I start eating. Yeah. When
Mhm.
you're training like 6 hours, 9 hours a week, it's not, for some people, it's not, it's a lot. Some people it's not that much, but you have to start, think about that, the recovery and the right fueling to get a really good workout.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah, because I just finished one before we spoke, actually. And not no, and not that it was a training session.
Right. Yeah.
And
And I'm
like,
going right after this.
yeah,
Yeah.
so and it was with these ladies who are so fit, and I just felt so out of my element. And I was just like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this. It's like, and I haven't had my recovery drink yet. But
Right.
so it's getting into a routine and understanding that those are so important,
Mhm.
right? How do you talk to your ladies about recovery? Do you talk about recovery
I do.
routines?
So really in the way of, again, practicing those kind of foundations, right? So
Mm-hmm.
what I suggest for hormonal health is, if you're really training towards a goal, and say if you're active 6 days in 1 week, I encourage you then to take a minimum of 2 rest days the following
Mm-hmm.
week. Uh,
Mm,
to listen to your body, listen
yeah.
to energy. The harder and more you're training, the more you're going to need to recover, whether that be actively, whether that be with sleep, whether that be with things like
Mm-hmm.
massage and foam rolling and, all of those sorts of things.
Yeah.
And then, yes, more fuel, absolutely. So
Yeah.
don't fear carbohydrates, and make sure you're getting those healthy fats in, all of that kind of stuff. And of course, it depends on your goals as well. Sometimes you need to think, is body composition your biggest goal, or is it performance, right? And that can be really
Mm.
important as well, because,
That's a good one to think about,
yes,
because
and
a lot of people are trying to achieve both, but
yes,
yeah.
and it's not as though you can't make
Mm-hmm.
improvement. But, when you think about professional athletes at that time, they are not thinking about changing their body composition during the
Yeah.
performance season,
Yeah.
right? So I always say I love to think about our goals in terms of seasons, and I encourage my clients to. This time of year on the West Coast here, we have snow right now, which is really bizarre for us.
Oh, I thought I saw that.
Yes. Yeah, we have actually had like a significant amount of snow
Oh,
and
wow.
ice and cold weather. And we don't have, the stuff to handle it. So it's always fun when there's no salt trucks and hardly any plows and all of that kind of stuff. Barely anybody has snow tires. But with all of that, it's like not getting outdoors as much, not doing the hikes, not, walking as much outdoors. And so I always use this as my strength focused season. But when it's strength focused season, I am also eating more, right? To support that, to build that lean muscle so that when it transitions into those longer, beautiful days and I'm naturally outside more, and that's what I love, then I can focus more on endurance, right?
Yeah.
So make sure that your goals are in alignment. Sometimes we have competing goals, and then you need to think about really what is the priority for you and how are you going to set up, your training, your fuel, your recovery around that.
Yeah, that's the other question I was going to ask you, Leah. Do you help them, aside from nutrition, set up like a good realistic training or calendar to have them, like, when are they working out, when are they walking, like, do they hike, like, do you help them with that as well? Is that part of the whole?
I absolutely can, and often do.
Mhm.
So a strong majority of my clients come from an amazing fitness community. And with that, it's very flexible, but it's kind of all laid out for them. It's either 3 or 4 strength training sessions. There's biometrics in there, and then they have some cardio guidelines, but again, it's flexible. So what I do encourage people to do is to take that rest and recovery. If they're not on some sort of a plan, then we focus again on simply getting them into the habit of moving their body regularly. And then, from there can absolutely provide a bit more guidance and, where to look for what their goals are as well.
I kind of work backwards. Well, because I work with a lot of cyclists. I don't talk nutrition unless they ask, and I offer, but I'm like, I ask them to put together their plan. Because, like, everybody's got like all these little extra things. So I'm like, give me your plan as to what you want to do. And then I will revise it and then offer up suggestions. So it makes them think, because, like, when you put together a plan, you're like, okay, Thursday, this is what you're going to do. Saturday, this is what you're going to do. And you're going to do this, that. And then sometimes it falls, like, it's hard to hold because it doesn't really mesh with sometimes their lifestyle. So I'm like, okay, you put it together, everything that you're going to do with these 3 cycling workouts, and then give it to me, because I've done that a couple of times, and I'm like, okay, so when are your recovery days? Because I see it's like in 4 months. It's just like, or like, I need to see 2 days on here. Where are you going to put them? You know what I mean? So I kind of put it back on them. And I read that in a coaching journal of an athlete who had a coach who did that.
That's
and
great.
I thought that was pretty smart of him, because it really made him schedule his stuff, like schedule his workouts out. But so now you've got lots of clients. Do you work with athletes as well? You said you did.
Yeah. So I work with anybody who is really wanting to level up their health, their nutrition, their lifestyle. And some of my clients are really amazing athletes that I absolutely look up to in that way. And as you said, I love that language that everybody that is purposely, intentionally moving their body is an athlete, right? If everybody thought of themselves as that way, then again, there would be maybe a little bit more intention and a little bit more, of respect again there for what they're doing and why they're doing it. I believe it's so important to have goals and kind of reverse engineer your plan backwards from there.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is absolutely a part of what I do.
So let me ask you something. Now with the nutritional part, how often do you have them? Do you give out meal plans as well, or do you kind of? Oh, I love it.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
like, I don't believe
I'm
in
like
meal
shaking
plans
my
either.
head, like no,
I'm like,
no,
I don't believe in meal plans. That
no.
was
Yes,
what,
yeah, strongly. Like, can I jump through the screen and say that?
yeah, I'm like, here's the magic pill while you're at it.
So anybody that gives out meal plans, for one, should be a registered dietitian within Canada, and I believe the US, it's the same. But why I don't love meal plans is because when somebody doesn't follow it specifically, they feel like they've failed.
Yeah.
And it really instills the old mentality of good food versus bad food, right? We know that all foods can be consumed in moderation, right? It is how you eat them, it is how often, how much, but all foods can be consumed in moderation. And of course, depending on your goals, that is going to look different. But when you come from that place of what is sustainable again and what you can do consistently, I know not sexy, not exciting, but that is what makes the difference.
Right.
So meal plans can be adhered to for a short amount of time, but science shows that they do not help inform great choices. They don't really help with things like portions. They really create a success or fail mentality, and they don't allow for preferences and freedom. And I, like,
yeah,
all of these
I'm like, what is that food, and where do I get it, and how much is it going to cost?
Exactly, right? So I have clients that live in remote communities, and their food gets flown in by an airplane every so often. They have to stock up. Maybe they're eating wild game or something like that more often, or have clients that live in a big city. What is available to them is going to be completely different. But again, personal preference is also really, really important.
Yeah.
Right. So it's about being able to help guide people to make great choices that are in alignment with what they enjoy, what's available, maybe what is important to their culture as well, right? And that's going to look different for everybody. So I am a strong no on meal plans.
I know, I'm like, no meal plans, because like I was saying, I remember being on some crazy, because I used to figure compete.
Yes.
And in bikini, and some of the things that that coaches like tell you to eat are ridiculous. I'll tell you something, Leah. There was one coach, he gave me, this is what I had to eat for breakfast for a month. I had to eat 2 tablespoons of peanut butter with 5 ounces of beef. Now, that was just for breakfast. You don't even want to hear what the rest of the week, the day looked like. And it was like the same, but this is a diet. This was a true diet because it had a very specific purpose. And that was to transform my body, build, like I had to take in, I don't know, probably 180 grams of protein a day to build the lean muscle that I needed for it, like over 4 months, right? Like it was like, anyways, but that's an extreme. But if anybody's ever competed, that's what your diet looks like. It's crazy, crazy stuff.
Yeah, I know a lot of
Glad
people
I'm out of that.
have competed. Some of my, close friends have. And again, what people have learned is that it doesn't have to be that way, even with
Oh
competing.
yeah.
I mean, yes, it is restrictive, and yes, but yeah,
that
going
was
back to
that was
not a
extreme.
fan. Yeah.
And if you get with a coach like that, think again. There's
Ab-
lots of out there. You'd be like, what? Yeah, no, it doesn't have to be that way. But so I have a couple of question about, so somebody comes to you and they have a really poor relationship with food.
Mhm.
And how do you coach them through that part before they can even, get into the, the self-love, the, understanding food and having it really work for them?
Mhm. So I always say that I mean, I understand a poor relationship with food as somebody that used to have a poor relationship with, my own body and with the way that I viewed food. When my relationship with food was at its worst, there was a time that I remember having an apple and peanut butter, and it wasn't snack time, and I broke down on the kitchen floor crying about it and realized that things had gotten a little bit out of control, right? And so what I do is help people recognize that it's not about perfection, that there isn't that good food or bad food. And part of how we do that is by tracking, because it can create that awareness. The fact that they're like, oh, this wasn't quote unquote as bad as I thought. And because I felt satisfied, I then simply moved on. Right. So we try and work on things like that, like letting go of that guilt. And that really makes a big difference for people, that awareness. Right. And everything from, that with food to maybe holding their hand on their heart and looking at themselves in the mirror in the morning and saying, I love you, and for some, I know that you're going to have listeners that were just like, oh my gosh, that was too much, lost me there. And I get that. But when things like that have tons of science behind them, right, which it does, self-affirmations that we can
I was
believe.
like, just a second, what is that?
my dogs, yeah, the delivery men, the joys of working from home, right?
Yeah.
But when we have things like that we can implement into our days, and again, they have tons of science behind them, that those are those little things that we can implement. They're, easy to do, easy not to do type of things, but they make a significant difference when you start to stack your habits. So when you start to love and respect yourself and then make great choices and then move your body, it's that amazing ripple effect, right? And it has this snowball effect that you move your body, you feel good, you have those endorphins release, and then you want to nourish it more, and then you nourish it more, give it what it needs. And then, so it's that amazing, effect that just keeps going. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's not as though there's going to, be no stumbles or no hard days. But what I always say is reflect, have that awareness, right? Maybe why did you end up in the pantry, eating the bag of chips
at 11 p.m.
Exactly. Like why did that happen? What could have been done differently? Can you identify? Was there a stressful conversation that happened beforehand? Did you not eat for hours and you had a blood sugar crash? And then just simply recognize that with that awareness, you can make a different choice going forward, right? So it's not about beating yourself up or anything like that. It's just, okay, that happened. Oh, this is maybe why that happened. And this is what I can do to prevent it in the future. So gathering data and then moving forward.
That's great. I love that. And, even as athletes, we have to start thinking about that too. Because, we talked about before the under eating, the overeating, the lack of eating, thinking that it's okay. And I go through a lot of that with some of my athletes. I'm like, it's not okay. We need to fuel ourselves and then afterwards. And so I love that you have and you've made your business around this. Now, where can people find you? And where can people find you and work with you?
Yeah, so on Instagram, I'm at Lea Christine Smith. I am committing in 2022 to posting regularly and providing some good content. So some educational content, some inspiration. So come follow me there. And then I have my website, beyondmeasurenutrition.com. If people want to come find me there and send me an email, happy to answer any questions.
Do you do some blogging as well? I'm just asking.
I don't. No, I don't. I will sometimes write lengthier posts that, have some thoughts or some common themes or things like that, but I don't blog specifically. No.
Okay, I was just asking because usually people you're also on Facebook. Let's not forget that.
Yes, I am on Facebook. Yes.
Cool. So where are you predominantly?
I was equally on Facebook and Instagram, I would say.
Perfect. Yeah. So there you have it, everyone. It's kind of the first quarter of the year, and this is also a great time to take stock of what you're doing. You've had like a month in your training plan. Now, how is your nutrition measuring up? Because I know as athletes, we do a great job at doing all the stuff to get us to our goals. But if you don't have the nutrition in place, then you're going to fall short. Right, Lea?
Yeah, it's the huge piece when it comes to performance, recovery, body composition changes. Nutrition is really what makes the difference.
And she also mentioned nutrition deficiency, which is huge as well, because the more you train, the more you do need to fuel and think about those recoveries, and the more opportunity I think there is to become nutritionally deficient in your body as a woman specifically. Yeah.
And then those hormonal imbalances, start, and all of those things as well from that. So it's very important.
So if you're questioning anything that you're doing, Lea is a great person to reach out to. And also thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in. And if you happen to know somebody, or maybe you're concerned about something, you can just forward them this episode, and they can get some great content there. So thank you so much, Lea, for this great episode. It's made me think about, like I said, getting and taking stock of what I'm doing to make sure I'm doing everything right with my training. And this is a great time to make any changes that need to happen. Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks a lot. And thank you to our listeners. And don't forget to take a moment to give us a great review and 5 stars. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great evening. Thank you so much for spending this time with me on the Secrets from the Saddle podcast, learning more about citing people, places, and things that make cycling such an exciting sport. I am so glad you stopped by today. Please leave me a review if you feel so moved to do so. I would love to hear your feedback. And if you could take 1 second to share this episode with someone you think would enjoy it, I would be forever grateful. Also, if you could please leave me a review if you feel so moved by going to iTunes and leaving me an honest thought and an honest comment, telling me what you think, and most importantly, tell me what you'd like to hear more of. It would really help me to bring more great, inspiring cycling stories to you. Until then, have an amazing day. Make sure you ride your bike. And don't forget to visit my YouTube channel if you'd like to see the full version of this podcast live.